We did quickly look at the different types, and we had parenchyma, collenchyma, sclerenchyma, epidermal tissue, and vascular tissue. Now, parenchyma is the first type that we look at. Now, parenchyma is what makes up most of the inside of the plant. It's often called the packaging material inside the plants. Now, don't worry, you don't have to be able to draw these pictures. Just label them. And when you look at the pictures, you can actually see the appearance of the cells within the tissue is that we've got living cells that are mostly round, and it's got cytoplasm in a large vacuole. And something that's interesting is that because they're round, there's spaces called intercellular air spaces between the individual cells. Now, because parenchyma cells contain chloroplasts, they can photosynthesize, which means their main function is photosynthesis, making a food for the plant, and then the storage of that food in the form of starch. The next tissue, collenchyma, is made up of living elongated cells, so they are lengthy. They're in length, they're like little columns. Now, their appearance is that they have thickened or thick deposits of cellulose in their cell walls, which means it gives them an irregularly shaped cell wall, and that makes them very strong. Now, you would find them in growing shoots or around leaves because they are strong yet still flexible, so their function would just be for support. Now, sclerenchyma is the third type of tissue, and although its function is also support, it looks much different, and you also find it in a different place. Mature sclerenchyma cells are actually dead, so they appear to also have thick walls, but they're not living. Sclerenchyma would be the type of tissue that you find in the bark of a tree. All the outer surfaces of a plant, in other words, all the parts above the ground and those under the ground, is covered with a tissue type called epidermal tissue. Now, above the ground, it looks a little bit different to underneath the ground. Under the ground, you can see this picture shows you on the left the tip of a root, and where we find the tip of the root, it's covered with a root cap, and just above that, the epidermal tissue or the epidermal cells have these little finger-like projections going out called root hairs. And the function of these root hairs is to obviously absorb water for the plant from the soil. The aerial parts of the plant, in other words, those that's above the ground, is covered with epidermal tissue that looks like this. It really looks like paving, these flat little cells that cover the entire surface of the plant. But you'll notice these funny little thingies that looks like holes, like little craters. These are what we're going to look at in detail, and these are called stomata. The function of the stomata is that it allows gaseous exchange to take place. That means oxygen that is produced during photosynthesis will be released, and carbon dioxide that is needed for photosynthesis will be taken in through these stomata. The last type of tissue we're looking at is vascular tissue. The function of vascular tissue is transport. It moves stuff. And on this very simple diagram, you can see the red arrow going upward, showing you that water that is absorbed through the roots gets transported upward in the plant through tissue called xylem. The blue arrow pointing downward refers to phloem, which is a different type of tissue which transport the food that is made during photosynthesis up and down the plant so that it can reach every part of the plant. If we look at the bottom side of a leaf, for example, we can see the veins. So in the veins is where you'd find xylem and phloem. If you cut through the vein, you can actually see on the inside what the vein looks like. It looks like this. This area circled in red specifically is the vein. Then those big holes, those are the xylem and the phloem vessels. Xylem and phloem forming the vascular tissue. It looks like little straws going up and down in a plant and through the veins in a leaf that transports the stuff up and down. So next time you look at a leaf, you look at a plant, realize that every part of the leaf is made up of a specific type of tissue to do a specific job, and it's way more complicated than you first think. So to recap, the epidermal tissue is the outer covering of the entire plant. The parenchyma is the packaging where most photosynthesis takes place. Collenchyma, which we find around the veins, is to strengthen it. So is sclerenchyma, although you'd find that more in the bark of a tree, not in a leaf. Vascular tissue is what you find in the veins, which transport stuff. And then on the underside of the leaf, the stomata is a special type of epidermal cell that allows for gaseous exchange. So see you soon in class.